Hello and welcome to our Thoughtfully Fit Thursday with my special guest, who I'm very excited to welcome back, Jennifer Kolari. Jennifer, thanks for joining me today.
Welcome. You're welcome. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, we had a great conversation a year ago and had a lot of our Thoughtfully Fit fans commenting about how valuable your wisdom was. And so wanted to have you back to see if we could expand on that conversation. You are brilliant in so many ways and really own a company in connected parenting. And maybe you could just start by setting the foundation for people who didn't see the last
Mhm.
episode and who you are, what your passion is.
Sure. Well, my passion is kids and families and really helping people understand that love and compassion and empathy is medicine, like really powerful medicine. And that when you can find ways to speak to people that really uses language in this way, it's a superpower. It really is. And not just at home, not just with your kids, but with work, colleagues, nasty neighbors, mother-in-laws, everybody. So that's kind of my passion. We've got a number of I've got a huge team that works for me that have been trained in the connected parenting model, and we see parents from all over the world where a lot of the issues are exactly the same, no matter where you live. They're the similar things that people face. I'm sorry, my dogs are barking in the background.
I love to hear the dogs in the background.
Thank you. Yeah, they're very cute. We have three of them. So we have our team, and then I have lots of online products, and I've got podcasts, and I've just tried to find a number of ways to help all kinds of families really strengthen relationships, understand how important compassion is in terms of resilience and emotional organization, and to really raise good humans, which we need more of on the planet.
We do need more good humans, and I love that your focus is on parenting and kids, and yet there's everything that you teach and your philosophy is transferable to the workplace and to adults.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And so today we thought we would take a slice. In Thoughtfully Fit, in the model, we have six obstacles, six hurdles that get in the way of being high performing, and they align with the six practices. And so today we're going to look at the Thoughtfully Fit practice of flexibility, which is really stretching to accept others as they are. And want to explore with you, Jennifer, how parents can accept their children instead of using harsh words. Now, I'm a parent. I have a 15 and 16-year-old, and I will say the harsh words come sometimes too easily, especially when, I'm hungry, angry, lonely, tired, just like, oh, Josie, why did you do, and thankfully I catch myself now much more quickly. I'm not just on autopilot. But I'm wondering if
Right.
you could just start us off and share a little bit about why does it seem like the harsh words often stick with us longer than praise?
Yeah, that's a really good point. And there is a negativity bias in the brain. We often focus on negative things and hold on to those. I mean, I think in terms of evolution and survival, it probably makes sense for human beings to focus on the negative things because it's the negative things that could sometimes poison us, kill us, chase us, eat us, all of that stuff. So there's a little bit of a set point in the brain that pays attention more to negative things, which only means that you just have to shift your perception. And that's something that you can teach your children to do, you can learn to do to help the brain understand when it's in a real state of fight or flight and when it's just escalated because of life and your teenager being, not nice or whatever. And it's really a matter of understanding when your brain is flipping into fight or flight. And so harsh words, that's one of the reasons why. And words actually, this is going to sound so corny, but this isn't. This is science. Everything around us is a vibration, everything, sound, color. And our brain actually takes those vibrations and then decides what those vibrations mean. That's what our amazing brain does for us. So sound and words, I mean, if you listen to someone, let's say, swearing in a foreign language and they weren't escalated or angry, the words wouldn't bother you, right? So it's the definition that we give those words and the understanding that we give those words, and often the emotional charge that's behind those words. So if I say a swear word to you right now, and I just sort of said it really loudly, you'd actually feel a little shock through your body. There would just be a little jolt, right? And if I said chubby baby or bunny, there's a complete body, right? So what happens is when we use words, there's a little tiny shock to them. There's a little what's called limbic charge to those words. And that's why words, whether you're angry or happy, choosing your words is actually a really important thing to do even in the business world. Right? If you say something like, "Oh, we really put a dent in that conversation," what do you think of when you hear dent? Find a dent in your new car, right? Something like that. So there's these connotations. But if you say, I don't know, that was really empowering, or that was a joyful meeting, or that was such a successful meeting, we have a completely different feeling in our body.
Hmm.
So the words are part of it, the actual words that we choose, and then the intention that's behind the word. So you hurt me, so I'm going to hurt you. I'm going to pick a word that I know will hurt you. That's going to have a double electrical charge. That's going to have a double zinger to it. And then it becomes what I call a chain of pain. Just people being angry and calling each other names and saying, "Yeah, but you did this and you're that, and I wouldn't do that if you weren't this." And then we do that to our teen, and then they go and do it to their sibling, and round we go.
And it has this ripple effect. There's
Yeah.
blaming and then defensiveness and stonewalling. I mean, it just sort of escalates. Yeah. Wow. Okay. So then you're talking about that you can actually train your brain to reframe it, to do something different. And I want to just invite in the concept of loving words, and like, do they stay with us too?
They definitely do. They definitely do, especially if the intention behind them is genuine, right? If you're saying, "Don't you know I love you," that's not going to work, right? But if it's really genuine, "I really love you," like there's a feeling that goes with that. And what comes with positive words is oxytocin, opiates, and endorphins. And those are all biochemicals. Those are all what are called reward chemicals that actually flood the brain and bring the brain out of fight or flight into a more what's called oxytocin based conversation, where you're looking at what kind of works for everybody. How can we find synthesis? How can we find balance in this conversation? And how can we both come out better? And that can't happen when you're in fight or flight. When you're angry and you're name calling, or even there's even the sharpness to your voice, is the tonalities there because you're angry and it's coming from a place of fear, which anger is. Then what's going to be releasing in the person's bloodstream is adrenaline, cortisol, right? These are very different chemicals that actually flood the brain and cause the brain to be ready for further danger, right? So, and then what happens is, so the way the frontal lobe works, that's the prefrontal cortex. That's the part of the brain that mitigates, organizes, takes perspective. That's the part of your brain that goes, "Ooh, maybe I shouldn't choose that word. Maybe I should choose this word," right? That's a really important part of our brain. But the limbic system, which is the part of the brain in charge of the safety mechanism, the survival mechanism in the brain, can't tell the difference between you yelling at your teenager because you tripped over the backpack in the front hall for the 14th time and a saber-toothed tiger chasing you down the street. As long as you're breathing fast and your heart is pounding and your face is flushing and your breath is changing, your midbrain is really not that intelligent, and it's going to assume you are in absolute danger. It is not going to decide whether you are or not. It's going to err on the side of caution. It's going to send you into fight or flight. And then all the beautiful books you've read and all the promises you've made yourself and all of those things go right out the window, and you're, "Don't you dare talk to me like that. How dare you? I drove you all the way." That's what ends up happening, right? So it really is learning how to control what I call that thinking gate, that switch in your brain that keeps you in your frontal lobe, keeps you planted in what the right things to say, the best words to choose, so that you're responding to your child instead of reacting to your
And,
child.
and so if there are parents who are listening, who struggle with this, I know I do. What how do you go from in that moment of anger and just like, oh, how dare did it, and what are some tips that you have to be able to shift from harsh words to loving words to be
So
more connected?
yeah, this is really hard though. There's a number of layers. So I'm going to answer why this is so hard first, and then
Yeah.
I'll help people understand what you can do. So there's a few reasons. How we were raised, how we were spoken to, how we were yelled at, our childhood stuff comes up all the time in our parenting. So it's important to just be the witness of that. You know what? This isn't my dad yelling at me. This is my teenage son who's having a hard time and thought a girl liked him and he doesn't. Like it's sort of helping yourself kind of figure out when your patterns are running. What's so important to understand as human beings is we have something called implicit memories in our brain. So these are things that happen to us sort of prior to the age of 7. Before the age of 7, we don't really have the hard wiring in our brain built to actually store long-term memories. So those memories get stored in our limbic system, like in our bodies. The body keeps score, right? That's what real trauma is. It is stored in your body. Even though your brain knows that happened a long time ago, your body's like, it happened once, it can happen again, and it's
Wow.
very, very alive in your body. So we're actually walking around. This is the truth. As adults, we are walking around with programming that was installed in our brain prior to the age of 7. So a lot of our reactions and a lot of the things that upset us are so programmed in our bodies. But here's the good part. It's only a program. So you can, in a very kind and loving way to yourself, go, there's my program running. There's my program running that no one listens to me, that no one appreciates me, or that I get yelled at if I don't do something. So I'm going to yell first. Just starting to be aware, be the witness of that program is a beginning, right? Oh, there's my program running. Or, whatever I don't know, if you were the youngest in the family and everybody, wasn't nice to you, you can recognize when certain events in your current life trip off that program. So that's the first thing, sort of being the witness. The second is knowing how to control that fight or flight mechanism. So, and parenting is hard. Let's just say that. Like, it is hard. Kids are so sassy and difficult and challenging. And they don't mean to be. They're trying to figure out who they are. If they're teenagers, their whole job right now is to push back and individuate from you. And I do believe there's a biological sort of, they need to hate us and we need to be really tired of them before we're ready to let them go. Like, there has to be a piece of that happening. Teens are much more interested in individuality and autonomy and sovereignty. And as parents, we're much more interested in safety and security. How do I know there's going to be other parents at that party? And those two things just conflict in the biggest way. So you already have that going on in addition to whatever programs you have. And then you have usually different parenting styles. So if you're parenting in a couple, one tends to be more, it's not their fault. They're having a hard time. Things are difficult. And the other one's more like, this is ridiculous. These kids are getting away with everything. We shouldn't let them talk to us like that. And then we end up polarizing with our spouse or our partner. So there's all of this complexity. And then we come down to the brain itself. So when we feel threatened, and especially if we're tired and frustrated and we've had a long day, we go into fight or flight. Our frontal lobe is off. It's offline. So all the wonderful books you've read and all the beautiful podcasts you've listened to, we have no access to them. You're just mad. So here's a tip. Yelling really does not work. It really doesn't. If it did, there'd be a lot of very well-behaved children in the world. It really doesn't. And I know that because, well, think about this, George. When have you ever been yelled at or bawled out or harshly spoken to and you've gone, oh, thank you so much. That's exactly what I needed. Never. Never let you do that. It would never let you do that. And unless you're absolutely terrified of the person, it would not let you do that. So you're going to go into fight back or freeze. So some people freeze and panic and run and slam the office door and hide. Some people appease and they're like, I'm sorry. And they try to fix it. But the majority of people will fight back. Don't you dare talk to me like that. How dare you? And we're off. Here's another tip. When you are angry and talking to your child in a sort of harsh way and it feels fantastic, probably not great. Right? Like, you should feel your brain going, I am so angry. I really don't want to. Like, you should feel your own frontal lobe mitigating and tempering that anger. If you are free flowing screaming, and that's when your spouse has a look on their face like, I can take over. I've got this. You don't have this. Right? That's just how it is sometimes. We go into fight or flight. So sometimes what's easy, I guess the easiest thing to do is recognize in this moment, this feels too good. I'm probably going to regret this later. You can change the words. What's interesting, we were talking about harsh words. You can keep the tone but lose the words. You can say, I am unbelievably angry with like the things that I wish I could say right now, but I'm not going to because they're probably not true. I'm going to regret them later. I'm still getting that healthy aggression out, but I've said nothing nasty,
Mm.
and I actually modeled good, like at least some emotional regulation, right? Even better, you can say, I'm leaving for 5 or 10 minutes so I can get myself together. This is not over, but I will be back in a calmer state, right? That is really key. And that's really good modeling for your kids.
Which is great, because as you're talking, Jen, I'm noticing this parallel process that's likely at play, where you are the parent having this frustration, these angers, these emotions that are coming up, and you have a script that you learned from before you were 7 on how to handle that. That may not have been good role modeling. So you might be dealing with the trauma of your own childhood, how you were raised, on top of the fact that now you are trying to figure out how to do it differently. But it's just natural.
It's very hard. And this is why, for all, especially the mamas out there, I mean, dads, get very upset with themselves too. But I have so many moms that I work with that, first of all, say, like, I was such a nice person before I had kids. Like, all the time now. That, but also just they go to sleep at night crying or upset, or I don't want to be that. I don't like the way I sounded in that moment. I don't like the way I handled it. And these deep promises you make to yourself. And then halfway through the morning, you're screaming, get in the car, right? Because you're just, these programs just trip off. So I want people to hear, this is so hard. Like, I don't want you to think this is as easy as making up your mind. This takes practice. This takes thoughtfulness. This takes awareness. This takes a commitment. This takes bravery. And one thing that parents can do, and mamas can definitely do, is they can do anything for their kids. They won't, there's a lot of things they won't do for themselves, but they will do this for their kids. So if you know this is going to help build a better brain for your child, never mind that you're going to be happier if you learn to control this. You will anyway. But you're modeling in so many ways good, healthy emotional regulation and emotional literacy for your kids. It's okay to feel and show all of your emotions. It's just not okay to act on every single one of them. And it's really important to pull away and go, you know what? Not loving how I'm handling this. I'll be back. Right? Or if and when you blow it, because we do, go back and repair. You remember this morning when I told you just go live with the neighbors then. I didn't actually stop and think about what you were telling me, that raincoat felt too bunchy or whatever it is. You can always go back and you can always repair. You're human, right? Now, the other element to this, just to add another layer, is that kids, their brain is not fully formed yet, right? So even teenagers, it takes 25 years to grow a brain that can mitigate, 25 years for that frontal lobe to be up and running at capacity. And maybe it's even closer to 30.
Wow.
Okay. So children don't have a fully formed frontal lobe. So their frontal lobe's ability to mitigate, take perspective, back off, think, oh, mom's in a mood, I better not ask for this right now. That isn't fully developed yet and won't be for a very long time. So you're not actually parents. You're actually a substitute frontal lobe. Mitigate, prioritize, organize, all of that stuff, which you also have to do for your own brain. So what kids do all the time with us, they start up, they escalate. Little kids, even teenagers, and you'll think, how am I doing this again? I've told them 50 times not to do this. But what happens is they go for us. They wait to get us mad. Then just before we get mad, they get a blast of adrenaline. Adrenaline is a stimulant, which stimulates their frontal lobe into working better. They then walk away, like feeling a little better, and we're a dish rag on the floor. Little kids do this all the time. That's why they bug each other. That's why they tease each other. That's why they push boundaries. They're trying to activate their frontal lobe, which is really ours. So my own daughter, who's now, I have 3 kids now, and Olivia's my youngest. She's 18 and a half. And I remember her being about 10, and she said to me, Mommy, I love the feeling just before I get in trouble. That's what she's describing. She's describing adrenaline seeking. So just to add another layer to this, often our kids will medicate themselves with our anger. So they get a blast of adrenaline, which is a stimulant, just like ADHD medication. So we have to realize that if we're not as neutral as possible, we're medicating their brain, which means we're actually rewarding in some way that behavior, and around and around and around we go.
Wow. This is fascinating. And I mean, it's one of the things I find incredibly hard. And one of you're giving so much value, but when you say as a single parent, there's no tag teaming. There's no like, okay, I'm out, tap out, you got this from here. And so having, I don't know, is have the ability to say, wow, I am not parenting well right now. I got to go take a break. Sometimes I can access that, but not always. And I'm
Yeah.
hearing that that's critical to be able to slow it down so that you're consciously, thoughtfully choosing instead of just in this default reactive mode.
And if you're a single parent, you're probably doing a lot of the parent polarizing in your own head. Oh, it's not their fault. Yeah, but I should really be tougher on them. And oh, I'm too tough on them. And like you end up the polarizing happens anyway, even if you're a single parent. Then you sort of end up all over the map, and your kid's like, which mom are you today? Which person will I be actually interacting with today? It's really hard. And they also are, so it's a hot mess is what it is. So there's a few things. So then this goes back to your question, what can you do? So number one is recognize if it is too free flowing, if it feels too fantastic, it's probably not great. Take a break, take a breath, or do the kind of mock yelling that I talked about where you're not saying anything nasty, but you're still sort of escalated. If you don't have little kids, you can leave. Say, I love you and I am coming back. I'll probably go in about 15 minutes, but I'm going to calm
Yes.
myself down because this is getting ugly and I don't like how I sound. I don't like how you sound either, but I really don't like how I sound. So I'm going for a break. If your kids aren't little, you can do that. You can actually go to your room, close the door, go in the bathroom. Now, some kids are badgers. They'll come in and bother you. They'll knock on the door, come out, and why aren't you? Like some kids won't let it go. And in that case, you just have to be, I'm listening, I'm coming, but I'm not answering you right now. I am actively calming myself down. No, come out, mom. And you just keep saying that. I am listening, but I am taking a minute. Mom needs a minute. And you're modeling there at the same time, right? And you might have to repeat that several times. There's a few things you can do. The best thing is to catch this before you escalate, but sometimes it's literally like a switch so fast. But if you can feel yourself starting to get agitated, where you still have some semblance of a frontal lobe, that's when you can say, I can feel myself getting ugly here. I'm going to go take a minute and I'm going to come back. Or let's text instead. Texting in teenagers works really well because then you don't have all the emotional stuff going on, the facial expressions. You can just have a text conversation. There might be some caps, but they're not usually as harmful, right? You can actually just relax your tongue on the bottom of your teeth. If you let your tongue go soft on the bottom of your teeth, can you feel how your stomach lets go? Yeah, your stomach. And the reason that's a great strategy is when your body thinks you're about to be attacked by a lion or something, you tense up all of those core muscles because you want to protect your stomach, your heart, your chest, your
Sure, you're
lungs.
gearing up for, protect yourself.
And so when your body, oh, here comes my son again. Oh, he hasn't done the dishwasher again. When you have that kind of tensing up feeling, your brain, the limbic system doesn't know it's the dishwasher that didn't get unloaded for the 5th day in a row. It thinks there's actual danger and it sets you up right away. It sends cortisol running through your body. It sends adrenaline through your body. Your heart rate increases, your muscles tense up, and your body thinks it's in danger. And if there's lots and lots of fighting and conflict, you never actually get to cool down from that. You're already set like that, and so are your kids. And so just relaxing your tongue makes your stomach go soft, and that's a signal to the brain, oh, okay, she just relaxed her stomach, so there's probably nothing that's about to jump at me. And then you have to breathe. And we are taught to do a deep breath in, but it's actually a breath out that works better. First thing you do when you're about to fight with somebody or run away is take a big breath in, right? If you're in a scary movie and there's a jump scare, is the first thing you do. So you're going to do the opposite of that. You're going to do what I call a sigh breath, where you're going to go, just let that breathing out. That is also a powerful signal to your brain that you're okay. In the sigh breath, you are not taking, what? It's not the breath, right? So an opposite breath, again, this is very subtle, but very powerful modeling for your children as well, because they're watching you not go from 0 to 100, right? They're watching you try to mitigate this a little bit. The other thing you can do, which sounds so silly, but the midbrain is not very smart. The midbrain is basically just very primitive and it's not super intelligent. It's the frontal lobe that has all your smarts. So you can actually trick your brain in what I call brain hacks in several different ways. So let's say, I don't know, your teenager is in a foul mood and they're storming around and you want to just say, gee, will you stop it? Like, what's that? Just that, which never goes well. That just usually escalates the situation because, in a way, that's what they're looking for. They're adrenaline
Yep.
seeking.
Yep.
You relax your tongue, you do that breath out, and then you literally imagine a clear dome coming over you. And you can actually make it as real as you can because the midbrain it can't tell the difference between something you're imagining, something you've remembered, and something that's actually happening. It is the same thing to your midbrain. Your frontal lobe knows there's no such thing, but your midbrain doesn't. So these are little brain hacks. So you just kind of imagine this dome coming around you and your teenager's comments just pinging off the dome, and you're like, oh, I'm so happy I have this dome. I would just be on the front line of that nastiness if I didn't have this amazing dome. And it's absolutely ridiculous, but the midbrain is really dumb. It thinks you're in a dome. It just wants you to do something. It actually can work very, very well. Walk away, look away. So the more you look at your teenager and they're eye rolling, or they're your child and they're giving you an eye roll, or they have like a look on their face, the more escalated you're going to get because you're kind of staring at that target. Look away, look at something else, look at a picture on the wall of when they were babies, or look at some beautiful flower that's in your backyard outside the window, or a painting that's on the wall. Look at something else, relax your tongue, breathe out, and change your breath. And then if you can walk away at that point and say, I don't like how I sound, I'm really angry, I'm coming back in a couple of minutes calmer, but I'm still very upset, then that's powerful modeling for your child.
Super powerful. And,
Mhm.
and part of what I'm hearing as you're talking, Jennifer, is, I mean, this is our job as parents. We're set up for challenge because they don't have the prefrontal lobe cortex lobe
Frontal lobe works too. Yep.
fully developed.
Mhm.
And so we need to just accept that that's where they are. There's no changing that. We can't speed up that process. We can't get them to a place faster in development. And so just stretching to accept, like, okay, this is my job right now as the parent, is to serve as that for them and to teach them and train them and role model how they can develop it, and how
Yeah.
to then keep, kind of remember that in the moment,
Mhm.
so that you can choose, have
Yep.
at least some more choice instead of an autopilot response that
Yeah,
you
that's
know, later.
beautifully put. Hard to do, but beautifully put. And it's a gift to your children. And we talked about whatever childhood issues we had as kids or trauma we had as kids. The gift you're giving your children is they won't be passing on that gift to their children. So you're actually serving your grandchildren as well, which is really important. Now, this doesn't mean let your kids treat you like garbage and go, oh, well, they don't have a frontal lobe. There's lots of stuff we can do. People can go back to our original interview where we talked all about connected parenting and all the kind of practical stuff you can do. But just very, very quickly, when you're neutral, you can give a consequence to your child and say, look, I don't love this. You can mirror back to them. And if you want to know more about the calm technique, you can listen to my podcast too, where you can say, I get it. You had a crappy day at work or at school, or whatever happened to your teenager. I do get that, but I actually really care about myself too. And that's not okay. And so if you continue to talk to me this way, you will be choosing this consequence. And that's the wording. You will be choosing this consequence. You're not choosing the consequence. They're choosing the consequence. So if they continue to be nasty or swear at you or not do the dishwasher or whatever it is, and then you follow through on that consequence and you deliver it from a place of love, not fear. So if it's, you have to unload this dishwasher and I work all the time and there's very few things I ask you to do, blah, blah, blah. They're not really going to listen to much of that. If
Mm-mm.
I get it, you're busy, you got homework, you got stuff to do, and the dishwasher is not on your radar. I absolutely get it. And I'm nagging you about it all the time. But I love you and I know you love me and I need you to do it. So it needs to get done before 8 o'clock. Teenagers love windows. If it's not done by 8 o'clock, I'm calling the phone company and we're suspending your phone, or I'm shutting the Wi-Fi down, or you lose your phone for 24 hours or whatever it is. You're mean. You're so mean. I'm not mean, honey. You had a choice. You
Yeah,
chose to either continue that behavior or don't continue. You picked the phone being off, not me. See how
that's
you get to get
powerful.
out?
Yeah, yeah, it's your choice. And I just want to highlight and underscore, you said teenagers love windows, because if I, especially with my older daughter, if I ask her to do something now, that just, man, that triggers something where of defiance. Whereas if I give a window and say, hey, would it be possible for you to do this before what is 8 o'clock? And I'll negotiate a little bit with her, give her a little power on when it gets done. She's much more likely to embrace it and do it.
Absolutely. Room cleaning, whatever it is. Teenagers are, as I said at the beginning, they're like super, super invested in sovereignty and independence. You can't tell me, I'll decide when, right? So if you give them a window, this needs to be done by the end of the week, or this needs to be done by 8 o'clock, or this is going to happen. Like you can put the consequence part on. And sometimes for teenagers too, let's say it's a task or something you want them to do, they're not doing it. You can mirror first, always connect and use empathy first. That's actually what gets oxytocin flowing. That's what actually makes them go, ugh, I feel bad. Mom has asked me this before. I really am being kind of crummy about this. But if you're like, this is ridiculous, and I did this for you, and this for you, and they're not feeling sorry for you. They're not looking, they're going to look at your behavior, not theirs. There's no inner work being done there. They're just feeling kind of, they didn't do the dishwasher because you're
they're going to double down.
Right, exactly. And you can say to them, hey, I'm going to give you a few days to figure this out on your own to get this dishwasher thing down by 8 o'clock. After a few nights, if it's not working, then you're telling me with words you've got this, but you're showing me with behavior that you do not. And after 4 days, if it's not done, you are choosing this consequence. You don't even have to give the consequence that night. You can give them time to create space where they can actually show you they can do it. And that usually works best. For most teenagers, that actually works best. But those windows are huge. And it doesn't even have to be such a negotiation. You can negotiate the window, but you can say, okay, but it will be done by 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
And this is why I love texting. Like, okay, it'll be done by 8 o'clock. Like there's no discussion about it. And usually gets done. They'll do it right at the very last second, usually.
That's so funny. That's exactly what happens. And that's where then I have to breathe, and because I'm, starting to get worked up that I can't believe, and just sort of say, okay, it's not 8 o'clock yet. That's the choice. And she can make it at 7:59 if that's what she wants.
Not how I would do it, but
right.
How you did it, right? It's what you set up. And the more you sort of interact that way, the more the whole temperature of the household comes down a little bit. And then if you are using the calm technique, that empathy, there's sort of 4 things. You're going to connect, you're going to match their affect, you can paraphrase, you can summarize, you can clarify, you can wonder out loud. When you're talking to your child like that, or your teen, and don't wait for them to be upset. Like maybe they're telling you about a new video game that came out or something, or your child's drawing a picture and you're like, instead of going, oh, that's really lovely, let's put it on the fridge, you go, whoa, look at the way you got the sun shining on that sword. And I love the detail you've got on that shield. That's mirroring, right? So they're actually feeling an infusion of love and oxytocin and care coming from your direct interest in the essence of that drawing or what your child is telling you. Those are little drops of medicine that you're just giving them over and over and over again all week long. And then the whole temperature of the house just kind of cools down, and there aren't as many fights. There are always fights, but not as many. And they recover much faster, or they come back and they apologize. Oh, sorry, that wasn't nice of me. You'll start to see all those things happen.
Mm-hmm.
But the truth is, it has to come from us first. We're the parent, right? If we can't do it, they're looking at us and going, well, I'm 8, so what chance do I have of getting this together? My mom can't figure it out, and look at her, right? So we really have to be invested in it, and we have to be modeling it. And by the way, if it's as hard for us to control ourselves,
right,
it is harder for our kids. Absolutely.
That's what I was just thinking, right? If we can't do it, and we're frustrated that they can't. I mean, their little brains are being developed. Of course they can't.
Yep, exactly.
So this always comes back just to tying it to Thoughtfully Fit. And it's one of the reasons I wanted to have you back, is because there was such a great response to our first conversation, but also it so aligns with being thoughtfully fit. And at the core of Thoughtfully Fit is 3 simple steps. And, so I think one thing we'll just lock in here: the next time your kids are driving you crazy, just pause. Take a quick time out. Think, what need are they expressing, and how can you respond to it thoughtfully, and then act in a way that respects your child's dignity. I mean, that's what I feel like this is all about, is really respecting them as a human being.
Yes, absolutely. And ultimately, this is all so good for us, right? The less nights we go to sleep going, ah, I blew it again. I'm so mad at myself, and you're going to blow it. And when you do, you can always repair. This is something that you commit to daily and you work on. You are rewiring your own brain. That's going to take some time, right? You're not going to just decide after listening to this podcast that you can do it, right? And every day you try a little bit harder than the day before, or you'll do your best on whatever day that is, whatever that looks like. At the end of the day, though, your cortisol levels are going to be lower.
Mm-hmm.
Your adrenaline levels are going to be lower. You're going to feel like home is more of an oasis, like it should be, right? Versus, oh God, what's waiting for me on the other side of that door, right? And there will be moments like that. There will, but in general, this is better for the overall mental health and physical health of the whole family, right? To commit to
Yeah.
this.
And that's what I love about what you're saying is that it sounds like the more you practice, the more you train, the easier it gets and the better impact that it has. So if it's hard now, it's not always going to be this hard if you keep on practicing and training these techniques.
Absolutely. You would not go to the gym, do one, set of abs and go, why don't I have a six pack? Like you've got to commit to that. It takes time. And there's a lot, it's very complicated. Like humans are messy.
Yeah.
Everything's messy.
Everything's messy. And so I've got your website here, connectedparenting.com. And I'm curious, Jennifer, what are the ways for people who are watching or listening and they say, oh my God, this is so good. I want more. What's the best way for them to get more of you?
Great. So connectedparenting.com has everything on there. It's got all of our services. So we have a team of therapists who can see people one-on-one from all over the world. We work with kids too. We do life coaching and therapy with kids. So
what age? All age?
All age. Yeah. Under 4 is a little bit young, but 4, yeah, we do. And we work with kids from everywhere and families from everywhere. So that's one-on-one. We have something called The Village, where we have at least 2 connected parenting therapists or parenting coaches that are in there. People can meet as a community and share what's going on and help each other out. And it's also a place to practice the calm technique, which actually does take quite a bit of practice, but it's so worth it. That's the superpower right there. So you're doing that in a loving community of parents who get it. And that's a weekly kind of membership program, which is great. I have online courses. So I have 2 kind of versions of that. One is, and people keep them. They don't disappear after 90 days or you're a parent for life. You get the course for life. Like,
wow.
Yeah. I just think that's silly. Like and people watch it over and over and over again. And it's just me delivering the connected parenting methodology and model and talking about everything from bedtime to sibling issues, to anxiety, to everything, emotional regulation. And there's a version that's just on-demand videos. There's another version which is on-demand videos and a monthly coaching call where I interact with everybody. Which
awesome.
Yeah, and there are people from everywhere, which is just great, answering people's questions. And there's a closed Facebook group as well where parents are helping each other. And I am in there, creating audio content, video content, and interacting with everybody. Am I missing everything? Oh, books. I have 2 books. I have
And your book.
Yeah, How to Raise a Great Kid and Connected Parenting, You're Ruining My Life, which is the teenage version. And I think that's it. Oh, and the podcast. So I have 2 podcasts. I have the Connected Parenting podcast, which I share a lot of information there. I just think this is helpful for the entire world, right? We're going to help the planet one family, one household at a time. And then I have another podcast, which is called the Mental Health Comedy Podcast, where I'm a co-host with Ed Krasnick, who's a comedian. And we interview well-known comedians and celebrities.
Oh, I don't know what happened. Shoot, we've lost our guest. Shoot. Okay, I'm not sure exactly what happened, but I'll make sure that we get that last podcast in the show notes. And Jennifer, I know before we got on, we were having there were some technical issues and internet problems at your house, so I'm guessing maybe the storm, something just happened and kicked you out. I will say thank you so very, very much for joining me today to hear the wisdom of Jennifer Kolari. I mean, is she not phenomenal? Wow. So obviously a whole lot of ways to connect and learn. And I thank you so much for joining me today for Thoughtfully Fit Thursday. Be well, everybody.